Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
Time is not just a measurement. It is a powerful lens through which civilizations define their origins, culture, religion, and identity. While most of the world adheres to the Gregorian calendar, a solar-based calendar introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582, there exists a profound and lesser-known system of timekeeping that defies the globally accepted chronology. This system, meticulously preserved for millennia, is the Ethiopian calendar. What makes the Ethiopian calendar not just unique but deeply fascinating is the significant discrepancy it maintains with the rest of the world, a 7 to 8 year difference from the Gregorian system. But more intriguingly, in the context of global theology and chronology, some interpretations suggest a 151-year gap, pointing to a profound divergence not merely in timekeeping, but in world history itself. Ethiopia, known in antiquity as Abyssinia, is often described as a land suspended in time, a cradle of early Christianity and a citadel of African sovereignty that resisted both colonialism and cultural erasure. The Ethiopian calendar, or Guizi calendar, reflects the nation's ancient roots. Rooted in the Alexandrian or Coptic calendar of Egypt, it was developed from older systems of timekeeping and shares many structural features with its Egyptian predecessor. It includes 12 months of exactly 30 days each, followed by a short month of 5 days, or 6 in a leap year. Yet, the divergence in counting years emerges from differing interpretations of biblical and historical events. One key source of discrepancy is the dating of the Annunciation of Jesus Christ, which the Ethiopian Orthodox Church places around 7 to 8 years later than the Western Church. In Ethiopian tradition, the Annunciation, when the angel Gabriel declared to Mary that she would bear a child, is central to their era's beginning. According to Ethiopian reckoning, Jesus was born in 7 BC by Gregorian calculation, meaning the Ethiopian calendar counts time from what it sees as the true point of incarnation, whereas the Gregorian calendar miscalculates this event. But what about the more mystifying 151-year gap that some refer to? This perception doesn't arise solely from religious misalignment. It stems from complex and layered interpretations of global chronology, theological history, and the spiritual narrative preserved uniquely by Ethiopian scholars. According to certain Ethiopian Orthodox teachings and ancient scriptures kept in monastic libraries, the passage of world history is recognized by Western academia omits or miscalculates crucial periods. The Ethiopian tradition, especially in its ancient chronologies like the Kebra Nagast, the Glory of Kings, includes an unbroken lineage of kings and biblical events that contradict the Greco-Roman historical timelines promoted in Europe. One of the core arguments behind the notion of a 151-year chronological disparity rests in the observation that Roman imperial historians, upon the spread of Christianity, rewrote aspects of historical chronology. Some Ethiopian ecclesiastical scholars argue that following the destruction of the Temple in Jerusalem, 70 AD, and the subsequent Council of Nicaea, 325 AD, a deliberate reorganization of time occurred under the Roman Church to consolidate spiritual and political control. Events and epochs that the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition sees as essential, particularly those tied to Solomon's dynasty, the Ark of the Covenant, and pre-Roman Christian communities, were marginalized or adjusted in Western Christian doctrine. In Ethiopia, however, the link between biblical history and national history has never been severed. The Solomonic Dynasty, which ruled Ethiopia until 1974, claimed direct descent from King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, whose son, Menelik I, was said to have brought the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia. In this framework, the story of Christianity does not begin with the apostles in Rome or Constantinople, but with a Judaic-Christian fusion long before Jesus walked in Galilee, possibly even back to the days of Moses and beyond. This alternative timeline is not some speculative revisionism. For centuries, Ethiopian monasteries such as Debre Libanos, Debre Damo, and Aksum have preserved scriptures, royal chronicles, and Guizi texts that provide uninterrupted accounts from Old Testament times to the present. When European missionaries and Orientalists began visiting Ethiopia during the 15th to 19th centuries, Many were shocked to find versions of biblical texts unknown to the Western Church and chronological systems that maintained pre-exilic narratives as contemporaneous historical records. The Gregorian calendar reform itself is part of this disruption. When Pope Gregory XIII implemented the calendar in 1582, 10 days were skipped to correct inaccuracies in the Julian calendar, particularly to realign the date of Easter. While much of Catholic Europe adopted it swiftly, countries like Ethiopia did not, and this divergence widened the existing gap. Today, the Ethiopian New Year, called Enkudatash, is celebrated on September 11th, or 12 in a leap year, marking a spiritual and agricultural renewal tied closely to the flooding of the Nile and ancient Hebrew cycles. When we speak of a 151-year gap, therefore, we are referring not just to numerical misalignment, but to historical and theological divergence on a civilizational scale. In the Ethiopian worldview, much of what the modern world believes about its own origins, including the dating of creation, the flood, the Exodus, and the birth of Christ, is either mistaken or incomplete. The preservation of this view, even in the face of colonization, war, and globalization, is a testament to Ethiopia's resilience. European colonization not only reshaped physical territories, but also temporal frameworks. Colonial powers often imposed their calendars on indigenous cultures, redefining sacred time and state history in the process. Ethiopia, however, successfully resisted colonization, defeating the Italians at the Battle of Adwa in 1896, and continued to retain its traditional systems, including its calendar, script, liturgy, and theology. This refusal to conform to global standards of time is not mere stubbornness. It is an act of sovereignty, of cultural and spiritual continuity. To use the Ethiopian calendar is to walk in alignment with ancestors, to pray in the rhythm of saints and kings, and to acknowledge a version of human history that the rest of the world has yet to fully comprehend. The Ethiopian calendar defies global history because it never accepted the rewrite. It offers us a mirror through which we may question how much of what we consider universal truth is actually rooted in political convenience and ecclesiastical authority. It dares us to imagine that time is not a straight line but a circle, renewing and remembering itself not according to empire, but according to divine revelation. The mystery of the 151-year gap, then, is not merely a calendrical oddity. It is a call to investigate forgotten chronologies, to listen to the voices of Africa's ancient hills and monastic echoes. It invites historians, theologians, and seekers to look beyond Rome and into the highlands of Ethiopia, where time flows in tune with a history older than empire and perhaps closer to the original truth.